Hi.
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 That was loud.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Welcome to the Shack cast. Is that what we're calling it? Shack cast?
Not if you say it like that.
What does that mean?
You're like, Shack cast.
I couldn't remember. I'm
You
sorry.
can't remember? Are you
No.
kidding me?
You literally came up with the name like 5 minutes
Okay,
ago.
but it's like wow, we really can't start a podcast like this. We just keep
Yes,
fighting.
we're not fighting.
To reiterate what we said in our first take, I'm literally recording with my 4-pound microphone on a pair of twigs.
And I'm recording on a broken mic stand.
That really, really wants to record your belly button,
It
not your
does.
mouth.
I keep having to get lower and lower, and I'm gonna end up looking like a hunched over old
So like me
duder.
right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Hey, we're on the same level. That's a good start.
Sure.
What are we doing?
Welcome to the Shackcast. Tonight, I don't know, man. Tonight, I just kind of wanted to talk about what I don't like about one of my favorite kinds of viewing entertainment.
Yeah. What is said viewing entertainment?
Spooky shit.
Spooky stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we talking like ghost shows and
Yes.
ghost
Absolutely.
shows, ghost movies?
Yeah, just like anything generally supernatural. I love. All right, so here's the sad reality of being like a very serious artsy fartsy artist and loving horror. I hate horror movies.
Okay, agreed. Yeah, I'm gonna get in on that one. Horror movies have they're so hit or miss with us.
Dude, for real.
We watched what was the last horror movie I guess that we technically watched? We watched a lot of bad horror movies on Amazon
Yeah.
Prime because we're, I guess, masochistic in that sense, and then
I'm
we just
just
want to.
praying. I'm just taking a shot in the dark,
Yeah,
and
we're always kind of.
maybe Fang boobies will just be a hidden gem. I don't know, man.
We did watch that one show. But it was a ghost hunting show starring.
That made me feel so weird.
Yeah, it was.
Not for the reason you would expect.
Yeah, it's called Paranormal Porn Stars. That's the name I was thinking about.
Yeah.
We watched it on a whim when one of our friends was over because we wanted to watch something spooky, and it was it's such a ridiculous name that we were kind of like,
We wanted to laugh.
yeah, and we are they serious? And
Uh-huh.
I'm 100% convinced they are dead serious.
Well, at least the porn stars are.
Yeah,
The two gals and that, they didn't have any male porn stars.
yeah, we
it was-
only
it was
watched
just two
one
gals.
episode too.
Yeah,
And the camera guy. Well, one of the camera guys seemed like he was
Yeah, he was a little bit more
the
serious.
one that was away from the actual people. He was off by himself.
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
whatever they were doing, and he seemed like he was like, yeah, I believe this stuff. Where the other guy was just like, I think he was just there to see some bits.
Yeah. There were a lot of really weird moments where, it just kind of felt like this was, another weird way for these guys to, profit off of these women.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. It made me feel weird. I didn't like it.
Yeah, and
Also, nothing spooky happened.
yeah, nothing spooky. And for all of you, those of you out there, probably the two people who will actually listen to this,
Don't be mean. We have at least 3 friends.
we do have at least 3 friends. For all of those, well, they were there watching it with us. The 3 friends you're talking about.
2 of the 3.
Yeah. But for it's an Amazon Prime show, and everything was blurred. We didn't care about that either. It wasn't like we were
Yeah.
oh yeah. No, it was just we
I basically just I would continue watching the show if the 2 women evicted the other 2 creepy guys.
yeah.
And they could keep on the other guy, I guess.
Yeah,
okay
the one guy who was like, I actually feel like I'm into this.
Yeah.
He can stay and be the camera guy, but everyone else on the show that is
They're just creepy.
male
It's just
identifying
weird.
needs to leave. Yeah, yeah, because they. I don't know. There was one point in the show where one of the
I feel
one
like
of the
we're
other performers felt like she was kind of egging the other performer on
Yeah.
But I mean, we're probably giving way too into this show, and giving it way too much credit and
Well, I
like,
mean, beyond
attention.
that, we're also just really harping. We're going on a tangent.
Yeah, we do that.
We're going on a tangent. So basically, yeah. So like, I
Yeah.
really love horror. I love watching YouTube horror stuff because it's very
Yeah.
easy to grab. It's very prolific. There's
Yes,
there's a
there's-
lot of it.
You go down a YouTube hole very quickly on that one. Like, you watch one, and then there's like 50 more, like lined up, ready to go.
Right. Yeah.
Not conspiracy theory though, which is good. You know, that's kind of, but that's another tangent. You're giving me this look like, stop interrupting me, Jack.
That might be a small problem if we do a podcast regularly.
Yeah, is you just looking over at me, just like
Just you talking
Stop
over me.
talking. Well, we're just having a conversation. I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Also, no. Also, I don't know if you guys can hear. You might be able to because mics are weird and they'll pick up everything you don't want them to. Tobe is in the background scratching in his litter box.
Yes, we have two cats. For anybody listening who doesn't know us, we have a very fat cat named Leo, who is just my baby boy, and we have Tobe, who is my other baby boy, and he is not as fat, but still heavy, and he likes to play in his litter box. So you may hear their little bells jingling from time to time.
I don't think it's playing. I think it's a hate situation.
He does hate that time, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm gonna turn off the overhead
Sure.
because I have red lights on to like, ooh, we're talking about spooky stuff.
Okay. All right. So, once more, back to what I was trying to say. Basically, I just wanted to complain about the fact that, especially with smaller, quote unquote, found footage, I think the thing that there are like two things that really bug me, and currently the second one is slipping from my mind. But the first one is that vibes don't carry.
I know what you mean when you say that, but like I'm literally thinking of that TikTok we watched earlier. I was like, oh, I'm gonna check his vibe. Bad vibe.
But dude, like for real, right? So that's like a super true thing to me. I think that as someone who would really like to do more with this kind of thing, I think it's a very interesting hill to try to climb as like a filmmaker. I think is that you can try to find ways to artificially trigger it in people, i.e. with like sound design and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot very easily, especially in a found footage situation, or just like a raw like surveillance footage situation, convey a bad vibe or like a wiggy feeling, you know? It's really, really hard. It's even hard to kind of just explain it in words when you have a weird feeling. That's why we use silly words like vibe and wiggy and stuff like that. And I don't know, like, so, you know, to kind of go off of that particular issue, I actually wanted to ask you, so eventually we do kind of want to do like our own sort of like, for lack of a better phrase, insert my eye rolling here, like a ghost hunting show, kind of, sort of. And I kind of wanted to ask you as a filmmaker, like, how would you go about trying to tackle that issue without going too heavily into post-editing?
That's actually a good question, and it's one that I've thought about a little bit, but I haven't thought about a ridiculously big amount like I probably should, especially given that we do want to do this. And I think, okay, so let me jump back just a little bit, because you know me, I have to like start at one point to get to where I want to be. And that first
You're
of
the
all,
long-winded one. We
yes,
get it.
I am. Like, first of all, I completely agree. Vibes don't translate well, and I mean they just don't. And when you're watching, especially YouTube content, like we're always watching like the top 10 lists, and that's my fault because I'm the one who's addicted to top 10 lists. especially Slapped Ham. That's just a fun channel.
Goddamn name.
I know.
That goddamn. Hi, my name is Callan, and this is Slapped Ham.
Don't make fun of Callan.
I'm not. I was trying to do an impression of him. Like,
And this is Slapped Ham. Yeah.
yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, it's just a fun channel, and like, you watch some of the stuff that he puts up on the, like, his community kind of gives, and some of it is actually kind of cool and kind of unique. But 9 times out of 10, it goes back to that, like, yeah, he's sitting there, you listen to him, and the way he describes the clips, he's using so many, like, he's trying to be descriptive of how the video makes him feel, and that's something that I think is just indicative of shows and content like this in general. Like, if you go back to Ghost Hunters, which is kind of at least in my opinion, one of the shows that really started like the whole like ghost hunting.
Ghost Bros. I'm gonna scream at a demon.
We've got to be very respectful. Hey, ghost, eat my ass. I love that meme. But that's Ghost Adventures. No, Ghost Hunters, they're like
Sorry.
always no, yeah, you're good. You're good. They're always super respectful on Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters was the
Wait, are they the Taps people?
oh yeah, Taps, like
Yeah.
they
Is that what they're called? Taps?
yeah, Taps, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, which actually worked because Jason and Grant, the two guys who started it, were also plumbers when they started it too. So there's kind of like that nice little like play. Oh, we're checking the taps. But what I was saying is, like, if you go back and you watch them, and they're the ones that kind of started the modern ghost hunting, craze, I guess. And the show was on. I don't even know if it's still on. I don't think so.
It would probably be like season 30.
Yeah, I mean, like,
200.
I remember I stopped watching when Grant left the show. Grant left the show for reasons, and they did a very special kind of goodbye. He didn't like leave completely, but like he left like as a full-time host and full-time investigator. He just had some personal stuff going on, and I think that's like one of the best reasons to, if you're gonna leave a project or a team or something that you've dedicated yourself to, like, you should straight up, like, it's got to be for personal reasons, or you just don't get along. Yeah, there's a whole nother thing, but yeah, like, you go back to them, and they had this same issue of, they would sit down after the fact, and I'll get to this in just, they would sit down after the fact, and they would talk about how the experience affected them, what was going on in their brain in that moment. I think the differences between Ghost Hunters, at least the first couple of seasons, and then like the YouTube content that you find where people are doing these top 10 lists, is Jason and Grant and the whole Taps team, they did that like maybe a minute and a half after whatever happened. And so their words, the way they describe things, the look on their faces as they describe things, really combated that, like, that problem of vibes don't translate.
So not to interrupt too much, but like that actually, like, so you're kind of talking about this as like a positive, right? But like honestly, a lot of the times in these situations, those things come off as negatives for me, because they almost feel like you're being led.
Right, and I was gonna address that a little bit too. Is it was always presented after the fact. Like, the event happened, they showed it, and then they jumped back to the reaction.
Right, but stuff like Ghost Bros, not their actual name,
Yeah.
Ghost Bros, and like Callan or whatever, like when you're watching it happen, and as it happens, they're like
talking over it.
It's you see a dark, broody area, and this creepy figure
and
appears, and it's like, it's not.
That's the issue, I think, is like, they're trying to, you're right, they're trying to lead you on, and they're giving so many descriptors about the area, and they're telling you why something is quote unquote scary before you see the scary thing. And I think that's where Ghost Hunters got it right, is that they just showed you what happened, and then like of course, like everybody else, they get like this, like the reaction shot of like, what was that? You know, and everybody's face and stuff. But they let that happen a couple of times. And then like, they were like, they sat with it for a second and then they jumped to the aside and were like, so this is what happened. And they broke it down. And like that firsthand experience too, of them being in the situation, I think also lends and like kind of helps that translate too, because it is a lot of this stuff is very personal. Like a lot of,
Right.
I mean, almost every experience is,
That's like one of the big things we want to talk about in one of our episodes. It's like how personal
Yeah.
spirituality and stuff like that is, like supernatural experiences.
exactly. And how the exact same thing could happen to 10 different people and everybody's going to have it a different way. Like, like you hear all these claims about people being touched at a certain location, like they'll feel a brush on their shoulder and it's like, oh, you know, so many people have said this, but like I guarantee you sit them down and every one of them's gonna have a different feeling about it.
Right.
And again, I think as far as what I would do as far as when we went out to film is I would definitely keep some of that, like we don't talk over what happens. We talk after the fact and we show things after the fact. And that is a bit of editing. It's also timing on our part of, you know, making sure that after something happens, we pull ourselves aside, especially because
Right.
it's probably going to be just you and me doing this.
Right. That's sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I've got my think size
Yeah.
going on.
I'm going to adjust my mic while because it fell again while you're thinking.
Yeah, so no, so what I was gonna say is like it kind of makes me think of oh goodness gracious, what are they called? The what are they called? What are the BuzzFeed guys?
Oh, you're thinking of BuzzFeed Supernatural and
Yeah, BuzzFeed
Ryan and
Unsolved
Shane.
and all that, right?
Yeah.
So like their format of um where they'll kind of almost have like the episode and then they'll have like
The Q&A after.
yeah, the Q&A where they can kind of divulge things a little bit into more detail.
Right. And then I do like, again, it kind of, sorry not to interrupt there, but you know, Ryan I think is the one who usually kind of talks about what's going on after the fact. But again, he does it after. He doesn't like they show what happened, they show the experience a couple times
There's
and
like
then
breathing room.
yeah, and I think with them specifically, like they pepper in all the history and stuff, which is something that you and I really want to do with the show. Is we really want to do like talking about the history of an area, why things may be spooky, you know.
Just informational.
Yeah, more so. And I think that's the other problem, but I'll get into that in a second. You like go.
Right,
I want you.
yeah.
I want. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So to segue from what you would do, I want to say what one of my favorite things in horror is, and I think that our show would really benefit from, and just any ghost hunting or supernatural experience.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. I think that the less post production you do on something, the more authentic it feels.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And one of my favorite freaking things in horror movies is when there's no music.
Yes.
There's no
Oh,
added
we've had
sounds.
so many conversations about this.
Oh
yeah.
my god. So I love sound and I love sound design, and one of my absolute favorite things, like I said, is just like when a movie knows to just shut the fuck up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that just like having like raw footage of just like something happening,
Yeah.
even if it's like just like the tiniest little things and yada yada yada. I think like honestly the most successful horror to me is the stuff where it lets your mind go crazy
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than trying to spoon feed you.
Yeah, and I can give you a perfect example of that. And it being done wrong and right in the same film. So, one of my favorite horror films, and at the same time my absolute least favorite horror film, is the movie The Strangers from like 2006. They made a sequel to it. I didn't ever see that one, but it like waited way too long to do it. But the original The Strangers, or maybe it's a remake, I don't know. The one with Liv Tyler, and I know you're looking at me blank because you don't know actors, but
Maybe the people listening do. I don't know.
yeah, like that movie, my uncle and I watched it together at like midnight, lights out in the house, like whatever. And that the whole movie was marketed as like this terrifying thing. Like when you see it in theaters and stuff, like everyone who saw it was like, no, it actually lives up to the hype. It's terrifying. And you know, it's this home invasion story with the idea of spoilers, you know, there's no reason behind the invasion. It's because you were home was the tagline to the movie. But my problem with it is I sat there the entire time and this was before I knew anything that I know now about film. Like this was just, I was a lover
Baby
of,
Jack.
yeah, I was
Little baby.
I was wee baby Jack.
Wee baby Jack.
You know, and my uncle agrees with me on this. We sat there and I was like, this isn't scary. Like the music is giving everything away.
Dun dun.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But there's this one scene where they don't do that. And it's they marketed this scene in the trailer, and it's the one scene in the movie, if I'm remembering correctly, there's no music. Liv Tyler, the lead actress and like lead of the entire film, is standing in the living room, and her boyfriend has like gone to do something, like try to like find a way out. Like they've already been like introduced to these home invaders and stuff, and she's just standing there staring off camera toward, you know, where her partner went, and in the background the kind of lead antagonist of the film, the guy with the like the bag over his face, the like the sack and the eyes cut out, the one like for all the posters and stuff, he just walks into the background. They don't rack focus. There's no camera movements or anything like that. He just walks up. It's quiet. He stares for a good, 30 seconds, and then he just slowly backs away back into the shadows.
Side note, that's another thing, stillness.
Exactly. Like, I think if I'm remembering that shot correctly, like it is a handheld shot, because most of that movie is handheld to add to that like frenetic nature and like this quote unquote spookiness, like a lot of found footage, but this one is more narrative driven. But it is one of the stillest shots in the entire movie, and it stands out. And I remember looking over at my uncle after we saw it, and I was like, that makes this movie for me. Mm-hmm. Everything else in this movie is predictable. It's not scary. I think people who saw it in the theaters got the crowd mentality that like the Paranormal Activity movies really like benefit from. Like if you watch those in a group, you get that kind of group scared mentality.
Vibes.
The vibes, yeah.
You get vibes from the people you're sitting near.
Exactly. Because again, I went and saw
vibes.
I saw the first three Paranormal Activity movies in this like weird succession. I watched the first one at a friend's house, laughed through the whole thing because I'm like, well, that doesn't do that, because I was studying like, something, like learning to, like I was wanting to write some things, and I was like, oh, I should study like on a little bit of demonology and things like that. And I was like, well, that doesn't do that. And I'm laughing because of how kind of dumb it all was. And I was like, I see where this would have been scary, because they don't have any music in those movies either.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, some of the camera work is pretty unique. And then I watched the second one 3 weeks after it came out, so the theater was like empty. And there's two moments in that movie that legitimately made me jump. The scene, if you've seen the movie, there's a scene where like the mom is sitting in in the kitchen, and like you hear like the air conditioner click on, and then like half a second later every drawer and cabinet like flies open, like the fridge comes open, like everything flies out of it, all the pots and pans. And I was like, okay, that one made me jump. And
little jump scary.
it was a little jump scary, but it worked. It was effective. Right. And of course I have like the best moment, because like, again, there's like nobody in this theater except for my friends. There's like a couple of people we know from high school behind us, and then
the scariest part of the entire experience.
Yeah. And then there's like this couple who was obviously on a date like 3 rows ahead of us, and that's it. And like that happens, and the guy in the couple, and I kid you not, this is this guy's voice to a T, he just goes, "Oh man, that was scary. That was scary, man. Oh." And he does that for 5 solid minutes. And
just a little tone setting. This was in the heart of Texas.
Yeah, like Central Texas, where I grew up. And you can see the woman he's with is like elbowing him, trying to get him to shut up. My 2 friends and I, we are losing our shit over this because, oh man, oh, that was her. Oh, that got me. That was good. And then finally, the people we know from behind, people we know from high school who are behind us just go, like one of them just goes, hey buddy, like I know it was scary and like we all got jump scared and we all laughed and stuff, but could you like I'm glad you're enjoying the movie. Can you cool it?
Thanks,
and,
can you not?
Yeah, and then he just goes, oh man, I'm sorry.
This guy sounds like the sweetest
He
teddy
was
bear.
so sweet. He's so sweet about it. He's like, I'm sorry, that just really got me. And it was, oh my God, it was.
I ain't never heard of no ghost.
Yeah, it was hysterical. And then like it dies down. The rest of the movie, I'm sitting there kind of like chuckling, making fun of it. I thought the camera placement, because there's more cameras, like they keep upping the camera tension and everything.
Right.
Like then it gets to like near the end, and like there's a character who gets their neck snapped, and it's so like it's again it's the stranger's moment, in that the character who snaps his neck walks in and is just, it's still, he's asleep on the couch, she's in the background in the kitchen, and there's no rack focus, there's none of that. She just walks in, she's staring straight
She's
ahead.
like a kid, right? She's
No,
like
no,
one of the
the kid comes later in the series, I think.
Yeah.
This is actually the she's the girl from the first movie. It's like, because the second movie revolves around like her sister and her family, and then like, but it takes place like before and after the first movie.
Oh yeah, she like walks into their house.
Yeah,
randomly.
like after she's been possessed and killed her boyfriend in the first movie, like she comes.
Dang, spoilers, dude.
This movie's been out for.
Spoilers for this like 15-year-old
I'm sorry.
movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you haven't seen Paranormal Activity, I'm sorry. At least the first three. I haven't seen anything past the third one, but she comes in, she stands there, she walks away, he wakes up, he literally looks behind himself, puts his glasses back on, looks towards the TV, and she just bolts in like fast walking, snap, and it's like, oh. And
Again, kind of jump scary.
kind of, but like you got led in a little bit. You knew something was going to happen, but it's not a jump scare because I just like chin butted the mic there. It's not a jump scare because like you know it's gonna happen, but the way they did the move, and if there was a cut in there, I'd have to watch it again, like where they replaced him with a dummy so that she could really snap the neck. It looks real.
Right.
Like that is like the most authentic shot.
Yeah, there's a scene in one of the later movies, I think it's like the third one, maybe, possibly, or whatever, but it's where it's like basically at the end of the movie, this dude gets his back broken.
Yes, and I was gonna get to that. Yeah.
It's so intense.
Okay, so yeah.
Oh my God.
That was the second movie. I see the third movie opening night in a fully crowded theater. We somehow got tickets. A couple of friends from college were like, all right, we've got to, because we're dumb college kids, right? And we get in and we're like in the top, like if you're looking at like where the projection booth is, we're in the top like right of the theater, right? And we're watching, and that movie, it's so funny. The first one, nothing. The second movie, there's 2 moments. The third movie, there's 3 moments that I was like, those are good horror moments. And again, throughout all of these, I'm like, this doesn't do that. This quote unquote demon that they're talking about isn't, if you read anything like about demonology, like this can't do that. This doesn't do that. It's not going to do any of these things. None of this is really right. And so you kind of like, if you know that, you're like, whatever. But the third movie, there's just a killer performance by the kids. The kids in that movie do fantastic. There's one scene where the older sister's chasing the younger one, and they like run into their bedroom, and the younger sister runs into the bathroom, but before the older sister can get to the bathroom, she like hits a brick wall of like nothing. And the look on her face,
Oh yeah, she looks super spooked.
it's the director and that actress, like, just they nail it in that moment. And then it gets kind of dumb because she gets lifted up by her hair, but like she sells it. And then
like, just think how unsettling that would be, right? So like you're walking, you're running, whatever it is or whatever, and then all of a sudden you just hit this solid wall of force, and there's literally nothing to explain it. And then like you walk forward and it's not there anymore. Like, that
Exactly.
would be so much spookier because you don't know.
Like if she had like reached out and like her hand like went through the spot that she just hit, would have been so much like scarier. You're right.
Right.
The other moment, the second moment, was they did this really cool effect where they put a camera on an oscillating fan base.
Yeah, I was going to say that was one of my favorite things.
Mine too, because the scene where the babysitter is in the kitchen doing homework, which shout out to like a movie for having a babysitter who's responsible and the kids are in bed and
She's not like twirling her hair and talking on the phone.
or like inviting boys over or anything. She's just like, nope. And then like it's like you see her, it goes past and it goes to like the front entrance where the stairwell is, and then like there's just one of the kids possibly is under a sheet like the typical ghost, and then it pans back and so the babysitter pans back to the left and the kid's gone, pans back to the right, and you know it's coming, you know it's there, and like it lets you sit there for a second, and then it goes and it's panning back to the left and you're like, oh my god, are we gonna hear a scream, are we gonna hear something? And then it gets back to the right and the sheet just drops, and like she looks behind herself and like she sees the sheep but there's nobody. Like, that's a good tension moment. That is a good horror movie moment. Tobe is like
Yeah, Tobe is like doing this thing that's genuinely could be a great scary movie moment where like sometimes he'll just stare into the ether.
like cats do, but
But he's like transfixed.
He
You
is.
could wave your arm in front of his face and he wouldn't even blink.
I know he is
So
like our
he's
resident.
doing that while we're talking, and I'm just like, demons, can you give us 10 minutes?
He's a resident ghost cat. But yeah, like so there's that, and then the third thing was the backbreaking moment at the end of the movie, and
That's just brutal.
it was, and like I wasn't expecting it, and so like that was a good solid. Again, it was like the second movie. It looked and you felt it, like the mise en scène in that moment. Like you felt that, like your back kind of hurt.
The what?
The mise en scène.
Quoi?
Oh god, I'm gonna butcher this. Any film people listening, I apologize, but it's
Does
like
it mean vibes?
it's like the feeling of a film. Yeah.
Shit, does it really mean vibes?
It's kind no, it's the mise en scène of a film is like it's like the way the film makes you feel.
Yeah, we just got a fancy word for vibes.
Yes, a
sounds
film
in.
word for vibes. But like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one, the Tobe Hooper film, you can smell that film because the set dressing, the way they shoot it, the fact that they literally left like food rotting in a Texas summer house with no AC for for like an entire day before they started shooting. Like I think the rumor is like it was like a week of just like and the fact that like her
That
costume
sounds like a little bit of a violation there. Like,
well, oh no,
actor safety.
oh my god, I could tell you the stories from that movie that I've
Right.
heard are
Maybe another episode.
yes, but like the fact that like her pants that she wears in that movie, the lead actress, they weren't allowed to wash them because he wanted like they're white pants, the white bell bottoms, and like she gets dropped in the dirt. It's the rumor has it that at the end of that film you could stand the pants up on their own because they were so caked in dirt and sweat, and like the people who worked on that movie won't work with that director again because of, but you feel it and you can smell that house in the movie, and you can feel that moment in Paranormal Activity 3 when that back breaks. The funny part of all this is, again, I saw that one, the third one, in a crowded theater, and it's me. So when I think a horror movie is stupid, I laugh, and I have no qualms about giggling in a movie like this, even if it's in a crowded theater, especially when I was younger and dumber.
Ruder.
Much ruder. Yeah, I was a rude. I was in like my first 2 years of college.
Boy, come on, get it up.
Don't get a content banned. But so we're like leaving the theater, and we're all like we're tearing the movie apart, like my friends and I, and there's this like lady a couple like feet in front of us as we're exiting the theater, and I overhear her say like, "Oh my god, that was so scary." And of course I roll my eyes, and she goes, "But there's that one guy up at the top right of the theater." And I go, "I was in the top right of the theater if I'm looking." She's like, "Yeah, like every time something spooky would happen, he would laugh." And I was like, I would laugh anytime something spooky happened. And then she goes, she's like, and he had like the bassiest, evilest laugh, because I like got a full on chuckle at one point, and she's like, and that was more scary than the entire movie. And I couldn't help myself. I just went, like when that was like a crappy movie villain laugh, but like I got that like.
Wait, you don't always laugh like that?
No, but like I just chuckled, like, because it made me laugh. I'm ignoring that. It made me laugh, and she whips around and goes, "It was you," and I was like, "Yep," and then like that was it. But like, it's one of my favorite movies of like memories of a movie theater is walking out of Paranormal Activity 3 and scaring somebody more than the movie just because I was laughing.
So being a ham.
Yes, I am a ham.
You're a
Don't slap
major
me.
ham. It's really, oh God, I don't want to. I really don't want to slap ham. Callan, what's wrong with you?
I love that channel.
All right. So
getting back to what we were originally talking about.
You are so good at tangents, and I have no idea how to reel you in.
I'm sorry. But I think that's one of the great things about a podcast.
I mean, tangents are fun. It's just, when we
for 20
totally
minutes.
lose the plot. All right. So two things I wanted to talk about, touching back on what we said without going on another tangent, was two movies that deal with sound really well. Obviously, Quiet Place.
Oh, yes.
That was so good.
I'm
so beautiful.
bummed, but I
loved it so
understand why
much.
the second one is later. Sorry.
Shh. Tangents. Tangents. Will you let me finish a sentence, boy?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right, and then the other one, which I think maybe doesn't have quite as much. I haven't seen or heard as much about it. Probably because it doesn't have like a beloved Krasinski thing in it.
John Krasinski.
Yeah, everybody loves that guy.
There's Jim on The Office, of course.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So, but this other movie, it's on Netflix, or at least it was for a while. It's called Hush.
Oh,
It came out in 2016. It's a little less of a traditional horror movie.
It's more of a thriller.
Yeah, it's like a slasher film,
Yeah.
right? Which always kind of doesn't feel as horror-y to me.
It's not traditional horror.
Yeah, or at least it's definitely not the kind of thing that scares me.
Right.
Which is something else I want to talk about in a
Sure,
second.
sure.
So that movie is so goddamn good.
Oh my God, yes. We watched that one together, didn't
yeah,
we?
we did. So, like, if you want some, like, good examples of, like, the kind of shit we love, go watch Hush.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And go watch Quiet Place, and apparently go watch Paranormal Activity 3.
No. Don't watch Paranormal Activity. Like, those just had good moments. But, no, you're absolutely right. A Quiet Place, Part 1, and Hush both have these, they're just fantastic from beginning to end. I mean, they have their problems like any movie does, but they really know what they're doing, and they had an idea and they stick with it, and they're successful. And I'm so glad you brought up Hush, because I still think about that. We watched that almost a year ago, I think.
Yeah, like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and I still think about that movie, some of the scenes in that.
Dang,
because
it's so good.
Because you're right, like the sound is incredible. But they also have a smart villain.
Yeah, they have a smart villain and a smart protagonist.
Yes. Oh
like,
my God.
both of them, you're like, oh shit.
And that is scarier than anything, is when you have a smart main character or protagonist who is doing everything right. I mean, again, not everything, because the character is human and they're not going to think the straightest in every moment. Like, that's getting on a writing standpoint, like a believability standpoint. But the lead character in that movie does almost everything that they can the right way, especially given the circumstances of what she's going through in the film.
She's a very realistic response to everything.
She does. And then so does the villain. He is that classic, like, I'm thinking every step ahead that I can while still being fallible.
I'm a sociopath who
Right.
likes to kill people.
And I have my method, and I have my way of doing things.
There's a reason why I've made it as far as I have doing this.
Exactly. And Tobe is like rolling around right now, and it's adorable. And I think he was like reaching out to my
Yeah,
like,
he's like trying to grab your jacket off the back of your chair.
but
Um,
but yeah, no, like, and then like they have that, and that's the solid base of the writing in the film, and then what they do is sound throughout that entire movie.
Oi, don't give it away.
No, no,
It's
no, no,
so
I'm not.
good.
It's
so good.
I'm not, but
Oi,
you
there's
were.
this moment at the end with a bathtub and like,
Oh
oh,
yes.
it's
Just
so good.
go watch Hush.
Just go watch Hush.
Go watch
It's probably
Hush.
still on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I think was it a Netflix original movie?
I'm gonna.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I pulled up the Wikipedia because I'm not good at remembering names of things.
Sure.
But it's got John Gallagher Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Trucco, Samantha Sloyan, and Amelia Emma Graves.
Very
Says
small cast.
it was jointly produced by Trevor Macy through Intrepid Pictures and Jason Blum through Blumhouse Productions.
Okay, which let's go ahead and clarify. It's a Blumhouse film. Blumhouse is a hit or miss production company when it comes to horror.
Released by the film had its world premiere at South by Southwest on March 12th, 2016, and was released by Netflix on April 8th, 2016.
Okay,
The
so
film has been remade twice with
really,
Kaliathia Kalam and Kamoshi being released in 2019. I think I
Oh.
just butchered the shit out of some names.
yeah. Well, they shouldn't have remade that. I mean, I
that's
get it.
interesting.
Like, it's gonna be remade because with a bigger budget. Like,
Its budget was $1 million.
yeah, that is like
It's so
shoestring,
tiny.
shoestring by today's
Pequeño.
standards.
It's so little.
But but that was a great restraint, I think. You know, like that's something that can be said about indie movies versus like blockbuster budget
Yeah, for
horror
sure.
films.
Yeah.
Is like it's the too much gene.
Yeah. So yeah, like all this is like a really good transition or segue into the second problem I have with so many like found footage and blah 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 like horror stuff
Right.
is that like people don't act like humans.
Oh God, yeah, no.
So like I brought this up earlier. We were watching a video, and this is what inspired my whole like rant basically.
And I was like, we need to record
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Jack was like, okay, come on, set the mics up, let's do this. But basically, the problem I have is that like dude, not to freak you guys out or anything like that, but freaky shit probably happens to you all the time,
Oh yeah.
and you probably just go,
Huh.
did I forget that? Or did I leave that open? And that's one of my biggest problems with like horror movies and found footage stuff or whatever is that like we were watching a clip. It was security footage. A woman had just mopped the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And this like the mopped sign or whatever started moving weird. And the lady comes back in the room and she calls one of her coworkers over. She walks off screen, and the guy comes in and he's like checking the room for some reason.
Yeah.
Even though it was
yeah.
only the thing that was moving a little bit, which at first I was like, water tension.
Which
But
I was going to
then-
bring up here in a second, but
right,
go ahead. Yeah.
But then it kind of looked like someone pulled a string on it. But anyway, so like that happened, whatever. But then a mop falls over behind him and he like freaks out and jets out of the room.
and what was really weird about that video, to me too, is the idea that like normally you can tell when like time has been clipped out, like especially on like videos like that, like you can tell like, oh, we're not showing you the full video, like so
Right.
that maybe there was a couple minutes where she was like, hey, this is what happened, it's really weird, and like kind of hyped him up a little bit before he
Maybe.
went in.
Yeah.
But that video didn't feel like that had happened. It was just instantaneous, like he just freaked out. But I wanted to touch on the fact that you brought up the water tension thing. Like literally we watched that and Shannon's first words were, it's the water tension making the sign move.
Right,
Like
the
there's a
surface tension
puddle.
in the puddle.
Yeah, there's a puddle, like it's a wet floor, it's making it kind of wobble.
Yeah, that's like if you have like a glass on your countertop, right? And like the condensation comes off the edge of the glass, kind of pools around the edge of it. Every once in a while, depending on how light the glass is, how full it is, yada yada or whatever, the surface tension on the water, the covalence bonds that are holding the surface of the water and creating that kind of bubble that you see when you look at a puddle of water, they'll kind of lift whatever's beneath them and it'll move a little bit.
And you actually just illustrated what I was about to say too, is that's the way you and I think about these things. Like we enjoy this subject, obviously, otherwise we
Right,
wouldn't
yeah.
be talking about it. And we enjoy the idea of, you know, I mean, I feel personally like this stuff is real.
Right.
Like ghost stories, like not all of them, obviously, but like
Right,
there
yeah.
is
That's
something.
so put a small cap in that because I actually want to end this conversation with an analysis slash listing of the things that actually spook us
Okay,
and
yeah.
where we stand
Okay.
on that kind of meter.
Okay,
So
yeah.
so put a little tab in
Yeah,
that.
I will. Yes, I will. I will bring that back. But I was just gonna just as like
Right.
that is the way that you and I think
Mm-hmm.
about these things. Is like we're very much again going back to the ghost hunters
Mm-hmm.
analogy of like if we can prove it wrong, or we can prove that there are other things at play here
Mm-hmm.
that like water surface tension. There's a scientific reason, or even if it's just like maybe we're overthinking it and we want this to
Right.
be real. We're the first ones to admit that, I think. Like, I feel like you and I both are like, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe there is another reason, or we will sit there and go, no, there's this lineup of things that is leading to
We
this
break
event.
it down.
Yeah, and
basically, like
unlike,
we don't just like take it at face value and then run with it.
That's my problem with a lot of these shows and a lot
Yeah.
of just like ghost hunting teams and stuff. Like I love that there's so many people who go out and do this stuff. I really do.
Totally. I mean,
And I
I
think-
don't love that a lot of people do it dumbly and illegally.
Yeah, and
so,
if if there's one thing like I will ever say is like never break into a cemetery. That is so disrespectful.
Yeah,
and
dude.
like that's like one of the most common themes in like any
One
of
of
these
the-
videos is like
one of the biggest things that I will tell people in general, but also just in life, and like if I ever have children of my own and such or whatever, like just ask. Like the worst thing they can do is say no.
and then respect it if they say no.
Yeah, like,
I mean-
they probably have a good reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, a cemetery and just in general is, I mean, that's a place of reverence. That's a place
Right.
of high emotion and like,
Right.
I mean, nobody is gonna want you,
You
going
could
in
break like I'm a weirdo, right?
Mm.
I'm a weirdo, and I don't
mean,
like walking
yeah.
over graves, right? So like,
Well,
and
yeah.
it's partly scientific in my mind, but also it's also a little bit wiggy jiggy vibes. But the biggest part of it is that like so like back in the day when graves were a little bit more shallow and people weren't quite as good
Mm.
at burying people,
there. Yeah,
there was a huge possibility that if you stepped over someone's grave, the top of their coffin would collapse.
like it had rotted through. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like for you it would just be like a little dip in the earth and you'd be like, whoa, what just happened? And for
Freak you
poor,
out, but-
yeah, and for poor grandmama's like remains, she just got a face full of dirt and worms. Like shit, dude.
And
But like it's like stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So like if you break into a cemetery and you're like acting like an idiot, you
Yeah,
know, you could
and-
just be breaking somebody's heart.
I mean, yeah, and it's just don't do it. Ask, and if you get permission, stay in the areas you're supposed to. Don't walk between headstones. Don't go take a photo like trying to do like spirit photography next to a gravestone. And
there's this like age old internet photo of
I
this
think I
like
know the one you're talking about.
beautiful Neil Gaiman looking
Yes.
motherfucker who's just like lounging across a gravestone.
He's,
and
like,
he's
goth.
absolutely beautiful.
He's like
he's
tiny too.
an
Like
elegant piece of like Renaissance artwork.
he's like tall and thin, like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. But don't do that.
Yeah.
Like it makes for great memes, but
don't do it.
that.
Like yeah. But yeah, again, that is one of my biggest problems with shows, and I love that there are so many people who are into this subject, who want to try to find something, who are into it, but I mean, yeah, I mean it like we
Yeah,
said.
so I think those are some really big things that kind of like There are problems I have with things that consistently pop up, but there are also things as a filmmaker or a showrunner or
Just a creative.
yeah, or any kind of like documentation leaning directives. I don't know. I sound like a robot.
Meet
I don't-
more watch footage, direct cut here.
Yeah, I don't talk to humans a lot. Congratulations, you guys are like the only humans I'm going to be talking to for a while.
You're doing a great job. I think you would pass a Turing test.
You know what test I won't pass?
What's that?
What's the one for how gay you are? I won't
don't-
pass that one.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Back onto the subject of hand. Subject of hand. Hear that? I'm messing up. Subject at hand. Anyway, so the two big things that I worry about tackling as a creator. Shut up. You look like a turnip. You're turning red.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that got me.
Crap, what's it? Like, Kinsey? Is it the Kinsey test?
I
Or
don't-
something like that? I don't know. It's something like... Anyway, I would... Whatever. There's not even a way to
Call
fail
in
that
now
test.
and tell us. Yes, coming to you live from an underground dungeon. 1-800, call and tell us.
Subject at hand. Two of the biggest issues. Believability... Believability fucked up by over-editing
Mm-hmm.
and people overacting. Like, you know, when you try too hard to sell it.
Yeah.
And I think that those are things that I really want to, I don't know, just like keep in mind. And like, we're probably going to fumble. There's probably going to be like,
I mean, there's always a learning curve.
right. Like, I feel like there will be things that we'll do. And that's the other thing. That's why what I want to talk about at the end of this. The reason why I want to talk about that is because like, it doesn't matter. Like this whole giant diatribe that we just went on, like literally someone else could be like, you guys are full of shit.
Yeah.
That stuff scares the shit out of me.
And that's okay.
Yeah, right? So, like, we're probably going to have, like, we could probably make, like, the magnum opus of ghost hunting videos. And, like,
We could literally probably prove ghosts exist.
right? And then, like, 70% of the people watching would either be totally uninterested or bored out of their minds. Like,
Right. But I think that's
Or they think we faked it, but whatever.
I think that's a fundamental difference between you and I. And maybe this is a good segue into that ending cap. I don't know. Is that we don't care what other people think?
Oh, hell yeah. I don't give a shit.
I mean, we're doing this
You
because we
definitely
want
care more than I do.
to. Right, but we're
I
doing
think that's a thing to really point out. Like,
yeah, I mean, I would love if people
if my goblin cackling hasn't given you guys any indication of what kind of person I am.
I mean, I think it's not about proving or disproving anything for us. It's not about
Right.
it's not about whether people believe us or not. It's about we want to do this. We think it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that again, I keep going back to Ghost Hunters because it's the one that started everything, and it's kind of the one that did it the best. A few
Are you sure that it's the one that started everything? Or
I mean,
is that just like as far as your knowledge?
No, I would say it's if you look at media in general over the last 20 years, that is the show that really started like the trend because sci-fi took a chance on it. And
Oh man, I miss old school Siffy.
I know, right? Well, it's Siffy now. Yeah.
No, I called it Siffy back in the day. Now it's sci-fi.
Oh yeah,
got
it's
the hard Y.
SY, yeah. But because that show gave rise to another what I thought was a really good show that branched out from ghosts and was more into like cryptids and things like that. Was Destination Truth. That one was that's just a fun show to watch, and it takes everything that's good about Ghost Hunters, in my opinion, and it just applies it to a broader spectrum. Like they went looking for things all over the world, like vampires, werewolves,
Dog.
What?
Dog, I want to go to Transylvania.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Can someone please give us the budget to go to Transylvania?
Yes, we will do a live podcast from Transylvania, like Dracula's castle. Oh my god, so fun. So fun. But like Yeah, going back to it, Ghost Hunters was the show that kind of repopularized it. I mean, you had shows like I think this came out in like the
Good stretch.
Leo came to join us.
Good stretch.
Like you had like Scariest Places on Earth was a show that was around. I distinctly remember seeing that one as a kid. But Ghost Hunters, like that was kind of like one of those shows that came out like you watch that after like 10 o'clock on a Friday or something like that, when they weren't as like particular about like what content was on the network or whatever.
It's actually something we should talk about in another episode, is how like we could go on all day about like safety precautions and not being a jackass.
Oh yeah, no,
But
the
also-
safety first thing.
There was that show that you watched on, I think it was Netflix, where it was like the
I have to sneeze. I apologize. I'm doing it the right way into my arm, but
bless ya.
excuse me.
But no, what was that show? It was like Morbid Tourist or something like that. Or
Oh,
whatever.
Dark Tourist. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's a
you-
Netflix show.
You really liked that show, if I remember correctly.
I enjoyed it.
I fucking hated it
Really?
because of the like don't be a jackass kind of stuff. But that's something that we could talk about another time.
I don't.
It just reminded me of it. It's just like stuff in general. Like I said, it's something
Yeah,
we
yeah.
could go
No,
on
we'll have to
another
get into that
episode.
because maybe we're thinking of a different show then.
Nope, we're not.
Okay. Maybe I don't know. Probably not.
I was literally with you when you started watching it, and
Yeah.
I was like watching it over your shoulder at one point, and I was like, "Oh, this sucks. This is bad." And you're like talking about how much you loved it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna shut up."
I mean, there's one episode of that show that I was just like, this is no. But there was, I think the idea behind that show was really cool. But
Yes.
anyway, yes, that's a topic for a whole nother recording. But getting back to it, of like, yeah, I think Ghost Hunters, yeah, was the one that just started the popularity increased after that, because it kind of set the standard as far as like the format that people would follow, which is another thing I could talk about forever, but I won't.
You can't rub that. That's where my mic is sitting. You're gonna make noises.
Yeah,
They're gonna
Leo
think
is
there's ghosts here.
Leo's wanting some love,
They're
but
gonna think there's ghosts in the video.
okay, so what are some things that you love about horror? Like
Oh, yeah.
you
Okay.
talk about sound,
Right.
and we'll do this and then probably like wrap everything up, with the
Right.
end cap that you wanted to do. But what are some things that like in horror movies and in ghost like reality horror shows and stuff? What are some of the things that you love that you would like us to do or emulate in some way?
Not a lot.
That's okay. That is okay.
Dude, for real. So man, I really talk like a bro, don't I? Like I don't actually listen to myself very often, but I really talk like a bro.
Sometimes.
It's the 90s, man.
Yeah, we grew up. We are products of our time.
Oh yeah. But no, yeah, I think I kind of covered it a lot. Is that like there's not a lot of things that make me feel things when it comes to like movies and stuff like that. Or rather, there's a very fine window of things that I can watch that are not like legitimately triggering for me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And ironically, a lot of the time, it's horror movies that are not triggering for me.
Oh, there you go.
And they kind of make my brain do work, right? And so like that's one of the things that I really love about horror and stuff like that, is it makes me think. I don't know about you, but when I see
Oh, yeah.
a spooky dude hanging out in a corner, my brain goes full ADD engine and just launches into a whoa, babies.
Our cats just attacked each other. That's how they play. Don't worry, they're okay. Tobe just swatted at Leo, and Leo responded in
Are
kind.
you okay? No, he didn't. He fell over like a sad sack of potatoes.
He's my sad sack of potatoes. I love him.
You're okay.
Maybe we should just both record on the floor from now on, because I want to be able to play with the cat at the same time. Anyway,
Hey, I get the kitty cats.
No, so yeah, I don't know. It's basically it makes me think. Like I'm a big basically the only like filmed media I tend to consume is like sci-fi, fantasy, and like horror stuff. I'm all about the like fiction. Yeah, I'm all
Yeah.
about the fiction,
yeah.
Put me into a place that's not real so I don't have to think about what is real, i.e. Trump saying that the coronavirus can be defeated by like
the warm
you know,
weather.
yeah.
By the way, you're hearing our political views right now because I agree.
The real world is too real.
It is.
And I think one of the great things about horror is that it puts all of your uncertainty and all of your fear and all that energy that you want to like do something about X, Y, and Z into a single enemy.
Yeah.
It kind of simplifies that anxiety for you. And like, as a person with generalized anxiety disorder, the things that scare me in reality don't have a face 90% of the time. And they're all just, bringing it back, vibes. And I can't do anything about it, right? And so like one of the most like secure things for me is like, one of the things that makes me feel the most secure rather is being able to do something about it, i.e. devising a plan against the intruder in this house that has an upstairs window that I can climb out of.
Right.
So like that's kind of one of the things that I think that's why I kind of tend to go for horror so much, is that it puts a face on things and makes things seem more defeatable than they actually are.
I can see that.
You know, that's just that's what I like about horror.
Yeah, I think I can definitely get behind that like thought process, and I can definitely like, I agree with the way that you approach the horror subject. And I think one of the things that I love about like these types of movies and these, and I'll break it into two categories. Like if we're talking about fiction and movies, the idea that even the smallest thing can mean something in a horror film, and it can add such like an awareness and like
Details.
the details, yeah. And I'm especially like if I'm like making something, details are important. Like
Oh my god, guys!
when I draw, the tiniest details are the most
Literally,
important.
no one will ever see the details and the extra work you put into things, and you don't care.
I don't, because it's
and
cathartic.
That's like admirable. It's a little frustrating to watch, but it's
Yeah,
admirable.
I could be so much quicker with a lot
You're
of things.
very dedicated to your tiny ass details.
But I think maybe that comes from the fact that I love film, and I the details can make or break something. And sometimes they're those Easter egg things that nobody's gonna find for years or whatever.
Yeah.
But they can make or break it, and I love that about fictionalized horror movies and things like that. If we're talking about reality shows and stuff, I think I'm right there with you in that there's really not a lot. I mean, I love Ghost Hunters. I have a special place in my heart for that medium, but there's not a lot that scares me. And I think one of the things that the reason that is because no matter what I'm doing, there's this wall of fake between me and it. And it's like, and I don't know if that's even something that we can overcome.
Right, yeah. So like, and that's another thing is like, do we even want our show to be scary?
Well, and I don't think I do. I think I want our show to just be as real as we can make it.
Yeah.
And if that means very minimal editing, if that means, again, I like the idea that you and I have talked about just going. And it's not, we're not searching for anything. It's like, this place is supposed to be haunted or spooky for these reasons. We're going to go here. We're going to check it out. We're going to.
Right, yeah. Like, there's totally merit in, like, going to places that have, like, this super rich history. And, like, people are like, oh my God, I saw a ghost yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. That's cool. But also,
and I
what
want to
about.
go there, but.
Right, totally. But, like, what about the I don't know, the Airbnb that like no one goes to.
Exactly. Like and going and just saying like, this is the history of this place, describing how we feel. We're checking it out. We're like, maybe we go to a town where there's like a bunch of haunted history or whatever, and we're like, cool, so this is what's around. We go do a couple of the things that are around, and it's just,
we got to go back to Olympia one day.
oh my God, yes.
Because I still have footage of, we were walking around Olympia one day, which is like 3-4 hours away from us.
Yeah,
and like
roughly.
we were walking around and we literally, not using the internet.
Oh yeah,
exaggeration.
no, yeah.
We literally found a crime scene.
We did. It was, and we have footage of us
on the outside of it.
Yes, we did not go in because, again, don't be stupid, don't break
be
the
a
law.
dick.
But it was a boat on a dock. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was pulled up, and we
It was all covered in like
we stayed a healthy distance away, and
Yeah.
but we had it in the background, and
what was it? What's the word? Tarp. It was all.
it was
all
tarped up,
covered
and there was
in, like,
police
tarps
tape around it,
police
and we
tape
actually looked up what was going on, and I won't get into that, but like we were like, because we thought maybe this is just condemned, or
Mm-hmm.
we had our suspicions about everything, and then we looked it up, and this
we
boat,
kind of sleuthed it and
Yeah,
like tied
and-
some stuff to it.
and we're like,
but-
we think this could actually be,
right.
but
But like, yeah, it's a place doesn't necessarily have to be like, tourist trap.
haunted,
Yeah.
to be spooky and to have history and to have stories about it that.
Right.
And I think that, like, literally just us going and doing and it being as real as we can and being, like, just authentic to ourselves and authentic to just yeah.
Being authentic, drinking some IPAs. I'm kidding.
I'm moving out.
All right, bye.
Wow.
I want to have a lot of fun with all this space.
But yeah, just I think that's the thing I want from our show more than anything is let's be as real as we can. And whether people gravitate to that or not, sometimes it's going to be boring.
Right.
And that's another thing that
Well,
I give.
hopefully it won't be boring because I'll be geeking out the entire time talking
yeah.
about like
I mean, it'll be entertaining.
right.
But like it'll be, and that's again, I keep going back to the show because it is
Why don't you just marry it?
no. But it is a good show. And it started everything. Ghost Hunters, not every place they went to had something happen. Mm-hmm. And that,
I think that takes balls.
it does. And the fact that they were the first ones, they started this trend and they did that.
Mm-hmm.
No other show that I can think of, and I could be wrong, but no other show did that. Something always happened.
I'm sorry. I just want to bring it back to our memories, the forefront of our brains. Do you remember in Ghost Bros, aka Ghost Adventures, when they had like these little transition screens where it was literally just like a doll's head?
Oh yeah, the
and
creepy
eye
floaty hallway
roll-
shit.
And the
Yeah.
eye rolls back. And then,
Yeah,
like,
I call that creepy floaty hallway shit. Yeah, it's literally just and a friend of mine
just
and I put
stock
that in
footage.
a friend of mine and I put that in a script once because we did like a parody like script about
yeah,
that.
yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, it was literally it's what I call it is it's the transition creepy floaty hallway shit, and every show does that. It's just to what extent, and oh my god, Ghost Adventures was the worst about it.
Oh my god, it was so bad.
That, and there was a show on A&E for a long time that was like paranormal investigator. It was like really bland title. They brought in like a medium with him every time, and oh my god, they were so notorious for creepy floaty hallway shit. Or even like in the middle of like they're talking about something, it's not even transitioning from scene to scene, it's just we're like trying to contact this spirit with the medium, and then all of a sudden it's like a shot of like this like dramatically lit grandfather clock that's ticking away, and that's like, oh my god, can you those things ruin a show for me when it comes to this topic.
Well, then at that point, it just kind of feels like a
It's cheesy.
30-minute haunted house
Yeah, it's cheesy and it's
that
not
I paid like way too much to get into, and it was
yeah,
only
because
like
I'm
4
paying
minutes
cable
long.
prices at that point. Shots fired at cable. Cut the cord. Go Netflix.
Oh my god.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
We're getting off topic. but
yeah, I think it's time for us to kind of like transition into the final thing I wanted to say, and so basically I wanted to ask you, so like, per the dotted line, what scares you in a horror movie?
in a horror movie.
Yeah. Or like a horror medium or whatever. Like what, what? Everything in life. What scares you? Can you like boil it down into like a few sentences?
I can try. Again, going back to what I said earlier about The Strangers, I think if a horror movie presents things in like a realistic setting, if
Like it could happen.
like it could happen, going back to Hush, if the villain is smart and the protagonist is smart, there's an equal playing field, and yet still things aren't working out for our person that we we're rooting for. I think that is something that gets to me. It gets under my skin, because that's real. Like in life all the time, we try so hard to avoid situations or to make things the best, and sometimes they literally just don't work out.
Right. So like yeah, like it kind of I guess is it fair to say like you're a little bit more afraid of like the thriller type stuff because like all the time you're talking about like oh my god, I'm so afraid someone's going to break into the house or like
Yeah.
I'm going to see a face in our window or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's one part of it, especially with a fictional medium.
Right.
I mean, and I love like thriller horror movies. Like
Oh, yeah.
the original Halloween's one of my all-time favorites, and
Mm-hmm.
the remake that they did a couple years ago, which is a whole nother topic I could get on because it was written by comedians, and that's something I would love to talk about. Like that one was really good, for a number of reasons, but I think that like I can do everything right
Right.
and still lose is terrifying when you put it in a horror sense.
So yeah, so like a smart
A smart
entity.
or yeah, whether it's that literal feeling of just being out of control no matter what you do.
Right.
I think those are the things that scare me the most, and I think if you bring that into the real world, I mean, again, it's the reality of the situation. I don't get scared by like, oh, I saw a ghost or oh, this thing touched me or,
Right.
and those can be legitimately scary things. I'm not like negating those things. They just
Right, but they're just not like the thing that usually hits for
they
you.
don't make my skin crawl. They don't
Right.
make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So there's that, and then I guess the thing that does is when I can walk into a room and I can feel like when people have an argument in a room and you walk in and
Vibes.
yeah, but you walk into the
We
room
should call
and
this
you just
episode vibes.
okay, vibes, talking about vibes.
Bad vibes, bad vibes.
But people can have an argument,
Vibe check.
and 5 minutes later you can walk into a room and you just feel it.
Oh, for sure.
It's like there's something there.
Some people can't though.
Which is something we should talk about on a future episode too.
For sure, for sure.
That doesn't necessarily spook me, but it definitely puts me on a heightened sense
Right.
when I walk into a room and I can just feel that like change in the air. It makes me more alert, which then in turn makes me pay attention. I start looking for the things that scare me. I mean, there's so many things that I could talk about, like demon face in a movie. It doesn't scare me. It just kind of like freaks me out. I don't like the distorted face.
Right. It spooks you.
But it doesn't stay with me. Like I
Right.
see it, and then like a couple minutes later, I'm like, oh, whatever.
Right. Just kind of how you were describing like the scenes that I was kind of saying that are like kind of sort of jump scary.
Yeah.
Like those tend to stick out to you. So
But then they fade really
right.
quick.
But they do work. They're effective on you.
They are. If they're done the right way, you
Right.
can't just jump scare because I
Yeah.
get dead to it. And
Yeah.
like, if I can see the jump scare coming, which a lot of the times I can because of I'm one of the worst people to see a movie with because I will sit there and break it down in my head. A successful movie to me is one that makes me in the first 10 minutes stop doing that and just pay attention to the movie. Because from opening shot, I am like, okay, that was a cut. Okay, this person's on this part of their story,
It's kind of really funny to watch.
But if a movie can take me out of that,
Yeah.
and if a horror movie can take me out of that, then that is a great movie to me. Even if it's a movie that everybody else is like, this is stupid, it wasn't scary, and I'm like, no, but it made me. And I'm not the end all be all by any means.
You don't understand, man. It worked on me.
Yeah. Though, and those are the things that kind of get under my skin and scare me the
Right.
most.
Right.
And then the movie Species, but that is because of a very traumatizing incident when I was like 3 years old, and my mom took me to a double feature of the movie The Indian in the Cupboard and Species, because we lived in a very small town with a one screen theater. And I remember seeing the preview for the Keanu
Is it
Reeves.
Species or like the alien ladies? Like,
Yes, and
when
she wants to
they're-
like breed.
when they're gahunkin, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's and then they do the moida.
Yeah, and it's like weirdest two movies to put back to back. Kids movie, you know, that is like I think based on a book and is really out of touch with itself.
Maybe they were hoping the kids would be asleep by then.
I wish I had been asleep, but I remember seeing the preview for the Dracula movie right before it. It's one of the earliest memories I have is like the Keanu Reeves Dracula movie. I think that's what it was. I think. But then Species comes on. 5 minutes into the movie, like things start like coming out of this lady's head. And at which point my mom loves to tell this story because she's like, at that point, I jumped into her lap, put my face in her neck. She had to spend the whole movie looking up, like her chin resting on my head. I was terrified. I think I was crying a little. And I fell asleep, clutched on, like wrapped completely around her. And she's like, yeah. And that movie, I've
If I
seen
remember
it.
correctly, that movie's not actually scary.
It's not.
Yeah.
But I was like 4,
Right.
3 or 4. Like
right.
and that's something I definitely want to talk about in the future is the power that movies have over us, especially horror movies. Because I can tell you some stories about like there's that. Yeah, I don't want to get into another tangent, but like that's why I love movies so much is the powers that they have over us and the lasting effect. But
Darling, your opinion on movies' power over people would be its own podcast, not another episode.
well, I'll limit myself to an episode. How about that? We'll do a one-off where I just bleh. But okay, now I posit the same question to you. What scares you?
Moi?
And
Nothing.
and we're done. That's the show.
No. Okay, so sound design goes a lot into what'll freak me out, obviously. So it's all about anticipation for me. Right? So like the music stops and one part of it is me anticipating a really annoying sting that won't scare me but just piss me off. Because ow, my ears, stop it. But also just it's the anticipation, right? So like if a movie is really good at displaying a threat without actually squandering it, that is the scariest shit to me. So
Can you give me an example?
yeah, so the thing that will ruin a movie for me immediately is if it's super gory.
Oh yeah.
Right? So like if it's like I'm gonna get you, and then the movie is just yeah, yeah, the movie is just like 2 hours of people being, you know, decimated by a chainsaw. I'm like,
Oh my god, my arm.
yeah, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I've seen the threat, and now like my brain goes into like full tactical mode, and I'm like, humans aren't actually that scary. Like they're pretty easy to like fight.
I mean, depending, but yeah.
But you know, it's kind of one of those things, right? But like at that point, like my brain goes into tactical mode, and I'm just like, I'm not scared anymore. Now I'm just planning.
It's fight or flight almost, I guess.
Right, yeah. And like I am absolutely not a flight kind of person. I'm very much kind of like, I will hit you. Like like I would be the
will hit
I would be the kind of person where I would back into Jason's stomach and I would turn around and I would just punch him. Like I would be that person. I would end up dying, but I would have gotten in at least a solid hit.
I'm just picturing like you're
small.
You're tiny, and I'm just picturing like 7-foot Jason Voorhees, and like it's like that. We watched A Bug's Life again recently, and like that scene where like Dot, the little ant, like
Yeah,
just
she, like, swats the
Thumper,
grasshopper.
and it's like no bad grasshopper. I just picture tiny little Shannon just like smacking his wrist with his machete, like and just like no. Bad Jason, you go to your corner now. You go back to your little hut or your lake or whatever, and you go think about what you did.
I mean, basically, like that's the thing, right? So like it's
You would mom guilt him back into his lake.
Oh my god, Lori and I would be the worst kind of people to put into a horror movie situation because
Lori's my mother, by the way.
we would wreck shit.
The reality of what you just said is hitting me, and it's absolutely true.
That's why in the case of an apocalypse, we all say, "Oh, go to the guy with all the guns." No, go to Lori and Shannon. We'll
'Cause they
keep
will-
you safe.
They'll guilt everyone else out of their guns.
Okay,
Like,
but not even just that though. Like we will actually kick some ass.
oh no, you both would. Like it's like my dad would have us covered on like survival, because my dad he loves the outdoors.
He's a hunter gatherer.
He is, and he's very protective, and I love my dad to death.
Big old jelly bean.
But like when shit hits the fan, like he knows what to do. And then you have like him being like this like protector, provider, like we're gonna survive. And then I know I'm fine because I'll have that, and then I'll have my mom and Shannon both just being like, and we're gonna get shit done. And
Yeah.
like there is no like moping around like, oh no, the world ended. Meh. It's just like, no, you go get that water and you kill that man and you get his bullets and you
Okay, but legitimately, so there are two jokes that have consistently followed me throughout my life, especially in regards to horror, but just in general. Anytime like an antagonist should appear in my life, the joke has always been that I will either make them feel horrible by being like, "Hey dude, why do you want to kill people? Let's talk about this." And then also just like, I know everything. Like I'm so good at like breaking situations down. Like I'll literally have never seen or read something before. I'll have never met someone before. I get the barest amount of facts and I'm just like, boom, boom, figured it out. What up?
you are scarily good at that, and sometimes it's like absolutely amazing, and sometimes I'm just like, let me be surprised.
All of existence is built on repeating fractals, and I can see the reflections. But no, okay. So the things that freak me out, right? So it's like it's the threat of danger and not knowing
Okay.
what it is because I can't go all tactician mode on it, right?
Right.
So like if I never see your monster, oh, it's so much scarier.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, it's so much scarier.
It's the age old question of, is it scarier to see the hook and you know what's gonna happen, or to see the hook go in? Like
Sure.
yeah. Is it
It's like, like if I think too much, right? So like if I don't see your monster, I'm like, oh shit.
yeah,
Like,
you
what could it
create
be?
a more
Right. And then like it's also like, and then when I do see the monster, I'm like, oh, it's bipedal. Oh, it's top heavy. Oh, it's got no eyes. Like whatever it
Right.
is. And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, okay, now I know kind of like how to deal with it.
see, you're more of the unknown
Right.
factor scares you.
But then the other thing that freaks me out, I think the movie's called Colossal. Am I thinking of the right one? It's got Anne Hathaway in it, and she can control a monster.
Yeah,
like a
I actually
kaiju
haven't seen
style
that
monster.
one. Yeah.
Right. So that is what I'm thinking of, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
So that movie is not supposed to be a scary movie, as far as I know. It legitimately scares the shit out of me, though, because it shows some eerily well acted and well presented. I'm like breathless thinking about it. Help me out here. Emotional
seen-
abuse.
Oh,
Basically.
okay. Like, just like an abuser versus the person being
Right, but it's
abused.
emotional abuse.
Okay.
Right? So like even when I was a kid, like the idea of like violence never freaked me out very much. But it's like things that can fuck with your head scare the absolute crap hole out of me. Like if you can make my brain my enemy,
Yeah.
then
You
I
can
am
turn yourself
defenseless.
against yourself.
Yeah. And just like, oh, like
I'm not smart enough for mind games, so
Well, like things that make me doubt myself or like doubt my original conclusions or whatever like that. Like that stuff
Okay.
throws me off so bad and it freaks me out. So like situations like that where it's like it's like a display of like mental abuse or just like generalized bad vibes.
vibes.
Vibes. I don't know. Like that's the kind of stuff that really scares me. And I'm trying to think of like a way to I'm trying to think of a way to kind of like simplify that, right? So like we simplified yours kind of sort of
Yeah,
into
kind of.
like a good jump scare can like really freak you out and like stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like that's a good example of like almost like a archetype, not an archetype, but like something
Like a
that happens
theme,
something
yeah,
that happens
like-
commonly in horror movies.
A trope.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
a trope,
the word.
A trope.
So that's like your trope, right? Or at least one of them.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so like I'm trying to think of a good, I guess like a good trope for me is like when the movie sets it up for a jump scare, but then nothing happens.
It's like the anti-trope almost.
Yeah.
It's oh, okay. Yeah. So a great way to visualize that is the
Like you pan on an empty room
yeah, or
and it just
or,
sits there for too long.
like the classic shot of like somebody's like looking in a bathroom mirror brushing their teeth. They look down.
Ugh! The
Yeah.
90s and the early aughts fucked me up with that.
Yeah, but the scarier thing to you now
Mm-hmm.
is when they come back, and when they come back up, instead of there being somebody being
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
there's no one there.
Right. So like the early aughts and 90s or whatever like totally set me up for that shit, right?
Right.
So like that happened in so many movies.
It does. It was.
Oh my god, it was
It was-
everywhere.
That's how it became a trope. Was
Blah, it
and
was
it's-
like everywhere, right? And it got to the point where it was like
you anticipated
annoying.
it. You knew it was coming.
almost, right? And so but now that people set you up for it but then don't do anything with it,
Mm-hmm.
that messes me up so bad.
Perfect.
It's my hubris.
Perfect example of that specifically is they're not great, but the
Also mirrors scare the crap out of me
mirrors. Good to know.
because
We're like literally sitting next to a mirror right now.
have you noticed I keep looking back into it?
Yes, I have. But the Rob Zombie remake of the first Halloween, he does that specifically. Those movies are a thing. But he does that, and that's one of the first times I remember seeing that kind of like flip on the trope. And like I'm sure I saw it before then, but like that was the first time of the times like I was critically thinking through
Right,
it.
it like stuck with you.
And I was like, now immediately it's ruined right after that because he like shows up. He's actually in the room. But
Right, they like instead of it being in the reflection, she turns around and it's like like he's just,
yeah,
in
like
the
he's
room.
behind the door or
right,
whatever.
Right, yeah.
But the idea of just continuing on after that and like, okay, I knew what was going on and then now I don't. That anti-trope, that flip, I think is what I would call it, is the trope flipping is what scares you, is when you
Right.
know what should be happening and it
Right.
doesn't.
And obviously there's a little bit of like it has to be pulled off well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean
Like,
same
with
with
anything.
me. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
It can't just be like the whole entire movie is just a giant cock tease, right?
Right.
So like, because then at that point, again, you get numb to it. You get really bored.
Right. And I think that's one of the coolest things about horror movies to me is that there's always room for, I mean, there's a lot of times there's going to be just kind of schlock out there. And like, there's going to be,
Schlock. I
there's
love
going to be
that
a lot
word.
of, me too, actually. I don't use it that much, but
Schlock and shtick.
yeah. But like, there's going to be a lot of like copycats and like a lot of just not good.
Well,
But
it comes
there's-
from inspiration.
It does, and
Right?
that's what I was gonna get to
Yeah.
is, but it is one of the most experimental mainstream film and
Yeah.
like creative types is like fear and horror is so subjective from person to person that there's so much room for experimentation when you try to capture that, and it's never going to encapsulate everybody. Not everyone is going to be afraid of what you've created.
As the current internet trend would the way that it would be worded is you don't hit like that for everyone.
Sure. I don't understand people today and their words, but
It's very easy to just
I know I'm being facetious, but yeah, just the I think that's one of the things that I love the most is that horror as a genre and as a just creative process is so experimental. It is so willing to take risks
Yeah,
and try new things
it forces the hand of human ingenuity.
and it sparks so much inspiration after. And again,
Yeah.
like you said, like I mean that's why we get all of the failed attempts that we kind of have to wade through.
Right.
But even in some of those, like you can
I'm so willing to watch those failed attempts though.
because there
there's
might be a
chance.
gem.
Yeah, there's a
There
chance
might
that
be a
like
gem of like originality or a way a shot's pulled off.
right.
Or and yeah, no, I think that's why I love it. Is I guess the kind of my ending point is if you were to come up and ask why I keep going back to this genre that has so many failures, like the ratio flops. Okay, not failures, not
instead
failures.
of failures, because I think even the people who are doing mimicry do succeed in something.
They do, and so they have so many flops, like their flop to success, like to not ratio is so skewed.
Yeah,
But I am
this is
way more
legitimately
willing.
like slogging through a sewer.
But I'm willing to do it every time.
Right. Yeah.
And there's other genres that I just won't do that with. I mean, if a sci-fi film isn't, if it's too not, it's too much of a miss, I won't sit through it. You know, because I can't get encapsulated with it. I'm not.
Also, before we totally end, the other thing that I really, really hate about the horror genre, get your titties out of my horror. I'm so tired of watching softcore and sometimes a little hardcore porn in my freaking horror movie. I want to be scared, not uncomfortable because I'm watching supposed teenagers boink.
I have this feeling. I have this feeling about film in general and nudity in film. It has to have a point, and that point has to be a valid, good point. It has to have something to do with the story. It can't.
Dude, I get it in the 70s, right? So like the 70s, early 80s, it was totally the whole like people are afraid of sexuality, and that's why
there was a lot of repression going on.
Yeah, that's why it works so well in horror movies and blah blah blah. And nowadays, it's literally just like boobies.
Yeah, I mean the remake of Friday the 13th, like the first like 30 minutes to an hour of that movie is basically softcore. But it has to have a point. Is what it was like. It has to be valid. It can't just be there for the sake of being there. I hate that, and I'm 100% with you. That.
Dude, and I am like so much more strict.
You're way more critical about it than I am.
Yeah, well, because
we're both still very critical though.
Right, yeah. And like that's a whole nother thing I could get on about is like what about all the people in your potential audience who are sex averse? You know?
Yeah.
What about people like some people, you could have potential fans who could be so into that, but because you're playing so hard into the top, layer of Hollywood,
just traditional
and,
like
and
horror,
icing.
Yeah.
You're totally like chasing away so many potential viewers of your product. But anyway, that's
a topic for a whole nother episode
that's a whole nother topic.
But this was fun.
Yeah, so I kind of want to end on asking, if you've made it this far, holy moly, bejeez.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you like cookies? I'll send you a cookie. You like cookies?
Oh, I hope like 100 people say they like this because I want to see you bake 100 cookies and send them out.
Oh, dude, I would.
I know you would.
I legitimately would. Well,
you're such a good person when it comes to like stuff like that. Maybe we'll cap it at 100 cookies.
Well, the postal service in America, which is where we are, is not super cool with people sending food to other people.
True.
So like, you know, if I know you and you're like somewhat nearby or whatever, like, yeah, I'll bring you a cookie.
We'll do the
other-
drive by. We'll keep
other-
our social distancing.
Yeah, but like, you know, date this coronavirus outbreak.
We've done that so many times in this already. So it's topical.
Anyway, early aughts internet trend, meme, whatever you want to call it. I'll send you an internet cookie if you lasted this long, because congratulations, you're so much stronger than any of us. And I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
you know, I want to ask, what things in horror movies freak you out, right? So like,
Yeah.
what horror movie tropes like get you every time?
What is your favorite horror movie? Like, I would love to.
Oh my god, yes, that'd be so cool.
And like to hear suggestions from people. Like, I think we both have a pretty expansive like horror movie library that we've seen, but we always love seeing new stuff, and we're willing to give this specific genre a chance no matter
Totally.
what.
Totally.
And we will watch it end to end. Like, we don't, unless it is just like, I don't even know if this constitutes as a horror movie, but
If it's
unless it's
nothing but
Birdemic
biddies,
2,
Oh yeah, if it's basically made in Clip Studio, then you know
That's
what,
different, but-
you're just cruel at that
Yeah,
point.
but-
Or if it's nothing but biddies, I
Yeah, I probably
watch it, 'cause
won't
that
watch it
stuff
either.
really does squib me out to a certain point.
yeah, like
After a certain point, what's that
it-
show? Freak something. There's some show like a black and white clown guy in it or whatever. It's a horror movie that's on Netflix, and like,
wasn't it that Terrifier or whatever?
oh yeah, that's what it's called, like Terrifier. I hate it. I know some people really love it, but I absolutely
I
hate
still
it.
haven't seen it.
It's just hurting women to hurt women, and then poop jokes.
That's disgusting, and I don't think I want to see it. But
Yeah, no, it's bad.
yeah, but like, tell us what your favorite horror movies are.
Yeah, tell us what your favorite horror movie is. Tell us what trope in horror movies gets you consistently every time. I
Also-
think.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, I think next time for our next episode, we should talk about the horror movies that really affected us growing up.
Oh yeah,
Because
oh,
I
yeah.
have like 3 or 4 that I would really love to talk about, and
I have a
also
couple.
watch again.
Yes.
I
Yes,
would
I have
really
a couple.
love to talk about those, like The Ring and Mimic and stuff like that. Like
The
those
Exorcist
are my 2 big ones.
was for me, but not for the reason that you would think. I actually, maybe this is a good teaser for a next episode. It is not, because I didn't watch that movie until I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but it is one of the most terrifying things, and I was scared of it as a child, and I will tell you why when we talk about that.
Yes. Don't you put your foot on my.
No, I was stretching my foot. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But yes, and then I would like to ask, like, kind of on that note. I'm sorry. Were you finished? I didn't want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Ish. Go for it.
Oh, no,
I want
I
to hear
would-
what you have to say.
I was just gonna say, for everyone listening, thank you again, especially if you've made it this far. But what kind of things would you like us to talk about in this kind of genre? Like, obviously, we're sticking to this subject matter, but like, what kind of things would you like us? If you have ideas, like, I would love to hear what you would like to hear, like, opinions on. Like, if it's
Well, so like, I actually kind of wanted to use this as another call to action.
yeah, that's a good.
For folks too. We actually just recently asked around a little bit for people's horror stories.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
like supernatural experiences and stuff like that. And I think that doing an entire episode of just that maybe might not be super fun,
Mm-hmm.
because it would be very unbalanced.
Very
But
repetitive.
I think so,
too.
like, you know, maybe the next episode we'll talk about our childhood fear movies. And then maybe we'll tell a couple
yeah, maybe we
couple
could each
spooky
read
stories. Yeah.
that would
think
be really fun. I think.
Cool. So yeah, I think call to action would be if you have a spooky story or something like that that you would like us to share or would be willing for us to share, or maybe it's like a creepypasta you really love or something
Yeah,
like
just
that.
something that you'd like us to read.
Yeah, so you know, keep it within a certain understandable length, you know.
Yeah, like it can't be a 15-page creepypasta, but
But yeah, if you could send us that stuff, that would be really cool. You could send it to our email
yeah,
at
which is
twotiemedia@gmail.com. That's TWOTIEMEDIA at Zagoogle.
at the Google is how people are going to email us now. We're not going to get at Gmail. It's going to be at the Google with the G and everything.
Zagoogle. But yeah, that would be really cool.
That would. I would really get a kick out of that. I would love that.
Yeah.
So I think with that though, I think that's it for this episode. Again, thank you everybody for listening, and
Maybe we'll get better at talking.
I
eventually.
think probably not, but thank you everybody so much.
I love you.
Yes, I do too. And from both of us, from Leo and Tobeans, our two cats, and everyone here in our little dungeon, we hope that you are doing well, staying healthy, and are in a good place, and that you're
Having good vibes.
having such good vibes. Yeah.
Well, don't say it like that. That's kind of creepy.
I know. Well,
that's
hey,
weird.
it's the theme. But no, just having
Different kind of creepy.
maybe that's just me. But anyway,
I mean, maybe it is. But...
thank you
Anyway.
everybody.
Yeah, we love you. You're the best. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.